Hey guys, it's Terrence from the Black Republican Theory here. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. On today's show, I'm going to talk about the upcoming election, which is on Tuesday. It's the general election, and it's going to be epic. It's going to be a red wave, red tsunami. However you want to phrase it, it's going to be that. And so right now, I'm currently actually in Pennsylvania, sitting in a Walmart parking lot. And I'm kind of thinking about the difference between Pennsylvania and Maryland, and the fact that Maryland is so reliably blue versus Pennsylvania, which has turned into, I think Pennsylvania is turning red, but for the governor's election, at least, I think that it's going to be a reliably blue seat, because the Democratic candidate for governor here, Josh Shapiro, has ran an incredibly strong campaign, as opposed to the Republican nominee here. He's similar to the Republican nominee in Maryland, who has not run an incredibly strong campaign. And in fact, I think that the Republican candidate in Maryland, Dan Cox, he's actually aiming for something else. I think that he's aiming for a talk show. I think he's aiming for monetizing his seat and his political views beyond, what he was able to do as a state delegate. Why do I think that? Because again, he's running further and further to the right versus trying to follow the tried and true playbook of running to the center as a Republican candidate here in Maryland. So anyways, getting back to the Pennsylvania side of the line, you look at Doug Mastriano, who's not running a good campaign. He's kind of conceding the race. Whereas you have people like Dr. Oz versus John Fetterman. They're running a very spirited campaign against each other, and Dr. Oz is actually starting to perform on a level that I actually thought that he could, that he could or would be able to. He's starting to actually punch back and punch harder at the Fetterman campaign. Now, I don't support John Fetterman, namely because I think that he's an undercover racist. Anytime you have a guy who, as mayor of Braddock, comes out and brings a gun, points it at the first person that he sees, which is only a black guy, and make no mistake about it, if it had been someone else there, I doubt that he would have pointed that gun at him. If that person had been a white man, I doubt he would have pointed that gun at him. He pointed that gun at the guy who was jogging solely because he was black. So it could have been another Ahmaud Arbery type incident in Braddock, Pennsylvania, where John Fetterman was mayor. Now, beyond that, as lieutenant governor, he has not been, in my opinion, a very strong lieutenant governor, strong on crime, strong on the things that we need in the Commonwealth, including speaking up about jobs and crime in Pennsylvania, which is driving people out of the state. He has the ability to speak on these things. As a lieutenant governor, you're elected separately from the governor here in Pennsylvania. You have your own platform, and you can very much speak out to the crime, education, etc. And he has not done that. In Philadelphia, they only have one blue ribbon school, meaning that the rest of the schools are either mediocre or crap. And quite frankly, Fetterman has turned a blind eye to that. Now, his opponent, Dr. Oz, we all know Dr. Oz, a cardiac surgeon. I think that Dr. Oz is a strong candidate, but he would not have been the candidate that I would have picked. I would have actually picked either David McCormick, who also ran, or Kathy Burnett. Now, I was a strong Kathy Burnett fan because I think that she was more committed to the issues and ran a spirited campaign with less than half of the budget that these other guys have had. Dave McCormick would have been a more tried and true Pennsylvania boy, who, homegrown, would have been a favorite son, and he would have been a shoo-in to take on the Senate seat. Now, we look at other races around the country. Let's go back down to Maryland for a second. You have Wes Moore versus Dan Cox. Wes Moore is going to win. He's going to win by a margin of 30 to 40 points. He's going to be the first black governor of Maryland, along with Anthony Brown as the first black attorney general for Maryland. I think it is funny, and this was said in an article by Ovetta something. I forgot her last name. She's a columnist for the Washington Post. She cited the fact that when Mike Miller died, when the previous candidates, previous nominees, Democratic nominees for governor ran, they were both black guys. One was Ben Jealous and one was Anthony Brown. Both lost their races to Larry Hogan. Larry Hogan followed the tried and true playbook of running towards the middle, but both guys had the help of Mike Miller. Mike Miller was the Senate president for 33 years in Maryland. Mike Miller was the most senior official in the Maryland Democratic Party, who controlled, quite frankly, Maryland politics and played kingmaker to people like Steny Hoyer and Barbara Mikulski, and to even Chris Van Hollen. He put his hand on the scale to get them into their office, and he even put his hand or fingers on the scale, thumbs on the scale, to put Larry Hogan into office as governor. Now, why would he do this? If you ask me, it's because Mike Miller is an old school Southern Maryland type Democrat, meaning that he's very much the same, one and the same as Joe Biden, who I believe is, racist. And so, but a racist who evolved, who knows you can't say certain things just outwardly, you just show it in your actions, such as the thinking that if you're not, if you're black, if you don't vote for him, you ain't black, whatever. That's BS. Well, now that Mike Miller is gone and he's out the way, may rest where he deserves. We have Wes Moore as the nominee. Now, say what you want about Wes Moore. I do think that he's well qualified for the office based on what was allowed to go into the office with Larry Hogan. There was a much better candidate than Larry Hogan, as David Craig, who was the county executive of Harford County, who ran. He was a Morgan grad, grew up in Havre de Grace, but he lost the Republican nomination to Larry Hogan, only beating Charles Lawler from Southern Maryland. Now, get back to it. I think that a better candidate, better Democratic nominee, would have actually been Tom Perez. Tom Perez seemed to be a true fighter, and he would have made the Democratic race a little bit more exciting. But he was, I don't know how he did not beat Wes Moore. I do think that there were a lot of politicians here in the state of Maryland who put their fingers on the scale for Wes Moore, and I will openly say that I think that Adrian Jones, who's now the Speaker of the House of Delegates, has probably assumed the role that Mike Miller once played, which would be so ironic, as being one of the most senior Democrats here in the state and kind of controlling the agenda that will happen. Now, Wes Moore has a platform of leave no one behind. We'll see how that truly, takes shape. I won't be voting for him. I will actually be voting for David Lashar, the Libertarian candidate. Lashar's candidacy has actually tried to speak to the different constituencies. I think I've always been pretty open, even though I am a Republican, and being able to share my vote, share the vote with the candidates who actually speak to speak to not only my ideological values, but also speak to my own community, right? And so, with that being said, Anthony Brown will be someone that I'll be voting for over Michael Peruka. Peruka was a open white supremacist that was part of the Anne Arundel County Council, and he relished in that role. Whereas Anthony Brown, he actually showed up for the Grove Park community. I support him for that. Jill Carter, she's someone else who she's a state delegate. I will support her in that role. I can't say I support any other Democrat, to be honest. Otherwise, just no. No. Now the other, Chris Van Houten, I appreciate some of the things that he has done as well. So that's a maybe there. Because quite honestly, his opponent, no one has heard anything about this Chris Chaffee guy, and that's the thing, that Maryland Republican Party is not really competing. What's happening to the Maryland Republican Party? It's seeming like the Republicans here are just conceding the races like altogether. Like they gave up after the primary and didn't really run anymore. So case in point, you look at the Maryland Young Republicans and the Baltimore area Young Republicans. Neither actually show up in the Baltimore area unless you're talking about select areas of Baltimore County, namely Timonium, and that's it. Otherwise, no, they don't even come into the city. Neither one of those groups. And so, next thing, we have this whole Kanye and Kyrie Irving thing. Kyrie Irving solely shared a post of a movie that was on Amazon. That's all he did. And everyone's saying that he's anti-Semitic and whatever else because he shared a post. Really? All he did was took a picture of a movie. He didn't say anything else about that movie. He just shared a picture. America is truly off its rockers that they suspended this guy for 5 games. In addition, they want him to donate all this money and all this other stuff. That's ludicrous. Like, absolutely ludicrous. Now, Kanye's story is a little bit more in depth. Kanye, people can go out here and cape for Kanye if they want. Here's what I got to say about that. Kanye claims that he wants to be this, pro-black icon, Moses to his people. He's showed that he's had all, different type of personal trainer, different type of money manager, different type of lawyers. None of those people that he's been surrounding himself with are black. Where he's put his money wasn't a black bank or credit union. He hasn't even lived around black folk. And so why cape for this man? Why try to go out and break your neck or whatever else for that man? And then even still, why comment or cape for a lot of these celebrities anyway when they don't even think about you? They don't even know you. So what's the point? That don't make sense. So that's all I'm gonna say on that. I mean, he was in some business deals. Hopefully he has some good lawyers to enforce his side of things. Other than that, I mean, hopefully he lands on the seat. Now, going from beyond that, or stemming from that, is the case of freedom of speech. This is a topic that I've brought up and highlighted time and time again. These are false flag events that are going to lead to a destruction of freedom of speech in this country. I've been talking about this all year. The destruction of freedom of speech. And what's happening is that you're seeing a trial run, in my opinion, where black men are always being silenced. We're always being told to shut up. You see it down in Georgia, where and with like Tiffany Cross and Roland Martin, where they say, well, if you're black and you're voting Republican, then you're a coon or you're not that smart and whatever else. Well, you see what happened to Tiffany Cross. She just got kicked off of her show. They canceled her show abruptly with the swiftness. And it's because after you speak all these bad things about black people, you expect black folks to start standing up for you? No, black folks will not. I'm fixing my sleeves. Black folks will not, because why stand up for people who are not going to stand up for the rights of black men? And then, you go on Twitter and you see so many posts about how the gay community and black women, black members of the gay community and black women both stand up for heterosexual black men, and we don't do so in return. That is false. Heterosexual black men stand up for their families. They stand up for the black women that are around them. They stand up for the black gay folks who are around them, and especially their family members. I can tell you this. I have gay uncles, gay cousins, gay gay siblings. If somebody was to talk bad to one of them out of their mouth, they would have me to deal with, okay? So we have this pitting of people against each other, whether it's along racial lines, gender lines, sexuality lines, within our own groups, and intra-party groups and inter-party groups, that's only made, or external groups, that's only done and made to distract people from what the true thing is going on. Again, we have problems with the war in Ukraine. We have problems with the financial crisis that's happening right now. It's a major recession, guys. We have problems all over, and people are focused on things that are dividing us as a nation versus coming together and saying, yo, this is the stuff that needs to happen, or this is the stuff that needs to happen. Let's vote it out as we do in a democracy or a republic governed by democratic values, which is the democratic values of small d democrat, of democracy, voting and choosing our representatives, etc., and then choosing policy based on that. Instead, you have the media that wants to divide us, and when you divide us, it's more easy to conquer a divided people. So guys, don't fall into that trap. Anyways, last thing is with the financially, it's about to get really rough out here. Not only is Christmas and Thanksgiving and all these other holidays coming up, but you also have winter coming up, right? Or more so, let's say that the other way around. With the winter coming up, you have the holidays coming up, but you also have cold weather coming. And we still have the war in Ukraine, which Russia's not going to back down from. And so what's going to happen is that you have the price of energy is going to slowly creep back up. Moreover than that, you also have China, who is getting onto a military footing with a policy called the Military Civil Society Integration. What does that mean? That means that they will start taking a lot more of their military values and putting it on their civil society, and having their civil society, which is governed by the Chinese party, the Chinese Communist Party, govern the values of the society and the military, with the explicit goal of whatever the military interests are. Militaries have pretty much two main things. They guard the interests of the of the country, and they defend the interests of the country. By guarding, that means that they can go out and take and conquer or steal, whatever. But it also means, by again defending, is once you have it, making sure no one else gets it. That should wake up a lot of people here in America, because as Russia and China become closer, as well as China and Iran, that means that financially, in terms of oil, the international oil markets, etc., we might lose out as Americans unless we start opening up the taps here, and allow some forms of like fracking or whatever else, or even renewable energy, whatever's going to make sure we can power our economy going forward. We can't power it on sunlight alone with the solar stuff. We can't power it on those other things. We're going to have to get into the natural gas. Now, you also have, in addition to that, you have the heating prices that are going to go up because of all these other problems, but also because the raging inflation that's happening. And then in addition to the raging inflation, you have a raising of the interest rates, which I think they were just raised by 75 basis points again. And so that means that we keep raising the interest rates, you're going to slow down the economy. You see the housing market, a house that, you could get a house for $400,000 and I think 3%, but $3,000 a month. That was sold last summer. Now that same house you're gonna have to pay like close to $4,000 or $5,000 for that. Our economy is about to take a major hit because of we keep on raising these interest rates, and people are eventually gonna start having to quit, and they're gonna get fired, etc. This is not cool. We need to wake up, America. Anyways, guys, that's the show. Thank you for tuning in to Black Republican Theory. It's been real. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe.